We heard your feedback. You wanted stronger pick attack. You wanted longer, bloomier palm mutes. And you asked for nastier pinch harmonics. A few weeks ago, we had our biggest launch yet with Odin 3, and for that I of course have to thank all of you. But naturally, with any new product, there's going to be some bugs and feature requests, so we instantly got to work and started implementing some new features into Odin patch 3.1. If you previously purchased Odin 3, you will find this update in your mailbox waiting for you already. Be sure to check your spam just in case. You can simply run the new installer and it will replace your Odin 3 with Odin 3.1. You will see the new fret markers and such in your UI and you'll know the update worked. The very first thing you want to do when loading Odin 3.1 into previous Odin 3 projects is going into the advanced section and turning down realign phase to about halfway while turning up node ring out to about 25%. You may also want to turn on enforce and place it anywhere between 0 and 5 decibels. I will explain this more later, but these are basically ideal starting points for Odin 3.1, and while they are the default settings in the presets right now, your older projects will not automatically have these features set there. Now let me tell you about these new and exciting changes. Features, quality of life improvements, and bug fixes. First, let's start with the features. The most requested one was another layer of palm mutes. We initially decided to have 3 different palm mutes, from completely dead to more closed, and then finally semi-closed. But many of you wanted those very open, slow palm mutes as well. So those have now been added and will play between 32 and 25 velocity, as well as getting their own key switches. Here's a quick example of how the different palm mutes could sound. The second most common request was stronger pick attack. And so we added more pick attack and gave you a knob to control exactly how much of it you want in your performance. This will also improve realism. This knob is generally best kept between 0 and 5 decibels, but we do give you the option to push it into ridiculous extremes, as the distortion of an amplifier will even out a lot of dynamics regardless. One thing to keep in mind is that this newly improved pick attack feature will add a few millisecond offset or delay to your playing, as it would with a real guitar as well. This means, depending on the context of the project, you may want to push your MIDI a few milliseconds earlier once you're done writing. I personally keep this new feature on at all times, except for on extremely fast solos on the higher strings. But I will be delving deeper into that the coming days with even more tutorials. Next, we added a pitch bend intensity knob. This will allow you to dial in how aggressively Odin 3.1 responds to bends in pitch bend modulation. This is especially handy to match Odin 3.1's bend intensity to that of Guitar Pro's exported MIDI. However, this also means you can now bend far higher than before. We also gave you the ability to dial in the realign phase now. As we noticed, it could previously make very fast runs be slightly too out of sync, especially on things like palm mutes. Next is the node ring out feature. This lets you dial in how long nodes bleed into the next. This is especially crucial to make performances more fluid and realistic. It makes tremolo picking sound more real and removes the mechanical vibes you could otherwise get from a MIDI performance. We also had some of you ask for even nastier pinch harmonics. You know, the kind with some aggressive bending in the middle of a really fat metal riff. And so those have also been added and will now trigger by default on the 127 velocity, as well as getting its own key switch. Here's a comparison between the pinch harmonics we had previously and are still available with a key switch, and the new ones, which will trigger automatically at 127 velocity, as well as with a key switch. Finally, for the features, you will notice that the tuning menu has been expanded. You can now find some of the most popular guitar tunings in there, and beyond it being a visual help when programming, if you select a 7-string or 6-string tuning, Odin 3.1 will actually attempt to play on only set strings. So if you click on 7-string drop A, the 8th string will be ignored, and you'll be playing on a drop A tuned 7-string guitar. Whereas if you click on 6-string drop C, the 7 and 8 string will both be ignored, and you'll be playing riffs in drop C on a 6-string. While this was theoretically already possible in the previous version, it required you using more key switches, whereas this new workflow only requires you pressing one button, without having to do any extra programming work. Now for the quality of life improvements. You can now make key switches latching or non-latching depending on your programming preference. You can now also control the string selection by programming in specific MIDI channels in your DAW if you so please. You just have to turn on the feature, and Odin 3 will ignore all string selection preferences except for the MIDI channels. We put the octave numbers on the keyboard at the bottom of the UI, so things are easier to find. Said keyboard is now playable for if you quickly want to hear what something may sound like. We added fret inlays to the guitar visual because while a clean neck may look cool, it becomes pretty hard to follow in the higher fret range. We added a power chord key switch so you don't have to manually build chords if you don't feel like it. We turned the auto slide function into a key switch so you can either trigger it with a knob or the key switch. We added the string selection key switches to the key switch list so it's easier to look for and you don't need to check the visual of the keyboard in the UI. You will also notice that when a given key switch is activated, it will now light up in the key switch list for easier programming. We added a number value to the output knob so you'll know exactly how loud you like Odin 3.1 to play. We also moved the auto slide function to the advanced pane so it can now be next to the slide speed. I figured that makes more sense. Finally, for some less sexy bug fixes. Some DAW's octaves are different from every other DAW's octaves, so we now matched those in the key switch list. Soften attack was previously making fade-in sounds for some users, and that has now been fixed. Finally, there was a typing error in the key switch list, and that has also been fixed. I really feel like this takes the Odin 3 project to a whole new level in terms of both sound but also realism, and I can't wait to start producing more content for you so you also better learn the ins and outs of this software. The main reason we haven't been uploading tutorials is because we really wanted to instantly make this update. So yes, new content is coming. I'm extremely excited about it. If you have any questions, do let me know in the comments down below. And if there's any other features or improvements you're looking for, of course, email us. I'm super proud we were able to go from Odin 3 to 3.1 in literally a few weeks since its release. Thank you so much and happy producing.